Hey guys, welcome to Industry 4.0. We have episode 6 coming up with a bunch of exciting new topics for today. We have this past week we had E3 and a bunch of new exciting releases from that, as well as the release of the Xbox One X. On top of that, today we also have some news about the iPad Pro, just a general discussion about the Uber CEO. We're going to talk about something else, but Travis Kalanick had since stepped down. So we were going to talk a little bit more to that today. And also there was a new bill recently introduced to make it illegal for the president to delete his tweets by making it part of the presidential record. So let's just jump right into the first topic, guys. This Xbox One X, what are everybody's thoughts on this new console? It looks like it's stat-wise, it looks like it's a beast, but I don't know if I'm really not sure what to make of it.
So this is something that they've been talking about since last year, originally codenamed like Project Scorpio. They announced the Xbox One X, well, the Scorpio at the time, and the S at the same time last year at E3. 2 months later, the S comes out in August and was a slight upgrade to the original Xbox One. And then this one, like you said, the stats are off the charts. I mean, there was a lot of rumors of what it was going to have. The one that everybody knew was the native 4K. Was definitely going to be there. But I'm impressed by the specs. But in my opinion, video game console gaming has never come down to the specs. It's always been about the games on there. And that's a whole nother discussion.
Right. Yeah. And there's also rumors that the PlayStation 4 Pro was actually not achieving true 4K. It was just upscaling to 4K and HDR. I think I saw that they're boasting that this Xbox One X, which is hard enough to say on its own, is actually achieving true 4K at 30 frames. So that if it can push that, then that's awesome. Especially the fact that it's paired with the 4K Blu-rays that are also coming out. So for the life of me, I will never understand why Sony didn't put the 4K Blu-rays in their console. That makes no sense to me, honestly. But
they had an opportunity to with the Pro as well. I mean, they could have added it to the second generation of the console, and they for whatever reason chose not to. I mean, the biggest upgrade to the Pro was in most people. I mean, besides obvious specs and everything, the thing that people wanted the most was just the hard drive.
Yeah, right. And they both sport the 1 terabyte hard drive too.
Has Sony made the update yet to use external? Because I know Microsoft's been able to use external hard drives this entire time. I have a 3 terabyte plugged into mine because I was going digital for a while. So
yeah, they did do that. They had a recent software update. They actually enabled that backwards across all of their consoles, which you said you had it for the Xbox One, so I assume that Microsoft did a similar step with that. But yeah, you can now plug in external hard drives into your console. And I actually replaced it. I don't know how easy it is to replace the hard drive on an Xbox One. Did you ever do that or go into taking those steps?
Not in the Xbox One, no, because they immediately off the bat said you can use externals and partnered with companies. I think Seagate was a big partner where it was marketed as an Xbox One external hard drive instead of a PC, even though it was the exact same thing. But PlayStation, they built theirs to be removed. Like, it's very easy to remove the PS4 hard drive on both the original and the Pro.
Off.
Exactly. So it was really easy to replace. But the issue was, I can, on my original Xbox One, it was a 500 gig console. I can keep those 500 gigs and then add on the 3 terabytes. Well, with the PS4, you had to transfer your data to the cloud, delete what you felt comfortable deleting, reinstall stuff, and then download your save files from the cloud after you popped the new one in, because it wipes that hard drive, so you can't switch them either. The second you take one out, when you put it back in, it wipes it, even if it's the same console.
It has to be formatted a special way too, and it like prevents it from being used as any other storage medium.
That's a DRM.
Yeah, the DRM storage medium that they have going on there, their proprietary storage. But I actually did the upgrade to the PlayStation 4 before they announced this upgrade. So I took an external hard drive and I ripped it out of its like encasing. And I was like sitting there with like a screwdriver trying to dig it out of its shell and swapped it out with the hard drive that was inside of it, and then just popped that one back in the shell and formatted that one as like a FAT32 or some other normal hard drive just to use for like storage and storing like music and extra files that I have.
Nice.
I used to see that a lot with the 360s. They sold two versions. They sold the 250 gig console, which actually had a hard drive in it, and then the 4 gig console did not. It was 4 gigs of flash memory.
I remember that.
So when I worked at GameStop, people would come in, trade the console in. I would be testing it to see how much space it had before I opened the slot to see the memory. And there would be 2 memory units. I'm like, what is going on? So I would open it. There's nothing in there except like a tiny little thing like this big that they ripped out of the old 360 hard drives, like the ones that you clamped on the top. They would rip that one out to not have to transfer their data or pay for the transfer cable, and then just pop that thing in there.
Wow.
Dude, I remember with the Xbox 360 having the 20 gigabyte hard drive clip on, that huge hard drive that clipped onto the side of it. Now these things are sporting 1 terabyte hard drives.
Yeah.
And it's
what a difference.
and it's interchangeable, and I think it supports up to some like ludicrously large number for like future proofing it. And I've got a 2 terabyte sitting in my PlayStation 4 right now. And but like on a related note to the 2 consoles, the one thing that I wanted to get your guys' opinion on is the PlayStation 4 Pro isn't as much of a spec monster as the One X. But what do you think about it being like? Is it worth the extra $100 to buy the One X versus the 4 Pro? So if I'm someone looking at consoles, do I purchase the One X or do I purchase the 4 Pro and save $100? Because both of them are sporting 4K, both of them are sporting the 1 terabyte hard drive, high amounts of RAM, and similar specs. That it's different, but to a normal person, I don't know if they're going to be able to tell.
I think it depends on what you're used to. Honestly, you have for me, when I'm no longer really a console gamer, but when I was, it depends on your network of players. Right, you have friends you play with on Xbox games. If you're into Halo, you like Xbox, something along those lines. People are along the same lines on Sony. If you're into PlayStation Network, you're going to go with PlayStation. If you're talking about maybe converting players from one console to the other,
yeah, it's like more of getting people to change to be like, oh, the Xbox One X is going to give me the power that I need to push the pixels that I want, or enough of a draw to get someone over there.
I think maybe if you're really, really into the video quality, you might see some people move to the Xbox One. When you're making a purchase for something like a console, when games now cost well over $50 if you get them new, I think it's not a huge step to splurge and spend $100 more on the console if you're ready to make that move. Personally,
right?
No.
Right.
If you're talking about just raw processing power, I think maybe the Xbox One X might be a better value, like price per performance. But that's like a PC master race kind of talk. That the people who own consoles don't talk about that. They don't care about that. It's the games that sell the consoles, right? And the consoles have been always a loss leader for all these companies. Both the PlayStation, all the PlayStations and all the Xboxes have cost way more money than the Microsoft or Sony are selling them for. And their strategy was they make it back on the game. So they really don't care, and most people, again, I don't think care of what the specs are that are gaming. Some might, and some will definitely pick up the Xbox because it does offer quote unquote true 4K, not like the PS4 Pro where it's sometimes some games are 4K but some aren't. But I think it's gonna be all about the games and see who's coming out with what are the exclusives. Can Microsoft nail the exclusives? Because I think this round, because every round there's like console war, right? Who's gonna win? Who's gonna every generation that comes out? The Xbox 360 came out, and then the PS3, and I think the Xbox 360 won that one officially, and then they launched the PS4 with the Xbox One, then the PS4. From looking at all the number of sales and number of games sold, the PS4 won in that round. They go back and forth and see who.
Can you even say it's part of the console war at this point, though? Because back when those consoles were coming out, you had 5-year differences between the hardware.
Yeah.
Like the Xbox and the Xbox 360 were 5 years apart. This one, all of these consoles, the Xbox One, the One S, the Slim, the PS4, the PS4 Pro, the One X, all of these consoles came out in the span of 4 years.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. The earliest one.
Yeah, but to be fair, they did the same thing in the last generation. So you had the original white and then the black Elite Xbox 360. But then they came out with the Slim, and they came out with the E a couple years after that. It's all considered one life cycle of the 360. Right. But so it was about like an 8-year life cycle from when it first came out.
Yeah,
to this
but
one.
The one difference, Kyle, and then in that last change, that was just a physical change. So they made it smaller. They made it more power efficient, but the performance didn't change like in this. This is completely different.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so they're improving the performance by 5x in this case for the Xbox One X. It's 5 times as powerful as the original Xbox One. So they're changing. I think they have to change. They have to reduce that 8-year life cycle that they originally had because technology is changing so fast nowadays that if they want to keep up with the current trend that the gamers want, that what they demand, I think they have to keep it shorter. And now that they moved on to this x86 platform, which just in layman's terms just means it's a regular PC computer, like Windows or Xbox One X runs Windows 10 behind the scenes with a new interface. That's all it is. It's a really powerful Windows PC behind the scenes. So now that they switched that architecture, I think it makes it easier for them to improve the specs without losing backwards compatibility, because a lot of the things was really important back in the day when you got a new console that a lot of the games weren't compatible. They just added to the 360 backwards compatibility to the Xbox One, but that's done through emulation still.
Right, and I'm torn on like how to feel about the way that they're releasing these consoles. Like going back to they were all released within such a short span of time. Like it looks to me like they're just waiting until better hardware comes out and then trying to one up the other person barely. Like we're never gonna see them waiting for a true console. I think like the Nintendo, the Switch is and Nintendo's kind of stuck with this. Every so many years they'll come out with something entirely new and try to push into some kind of new market, or just like take the best of their previous console and work on something that's both new and the best of what they have had in the past. But with this, all of these consoles have 8 gigabytes of RAM, with the exception of the new Xbox One, which has 12, and they're all sporting. Basically, they're all sporting, as according to GameSpot's console specs, AMD Jaguar CPUs, and from what I'm reading, it just looks like they're just different generations of the same CPU. So, I mean, it's starting to kind of go into that game territory where you have Grand Theft Auto 5 released 5 different times for 5 different consoles, and like I don't know how long you could really do this until people start to get tired of rebuying the same console every time they announce a spec update, if they even do that. So I don't know how to feel.
I think they're all about the newest thing. I mean, they made the adjustments here because they felt like they could, because they already had the platform, like you said, with it's running Windows 10 in the background. I think that the biggest thing is, again, I think in 5 years you're going to see whatever PS5 and whatever the other thing is, because it's going to, like you said, it's going to seem stale. So even though they could make a slight adjustment, they're just going to call it something else with a pretty picture on it, sell you some of the games that you loved on this console plus new games, and you're going to buy it all again, because that's just how it works on console. I think if you're strictly looking at those two consoles, I mean, if you are already an avid console gamer and you play one, either Xbox or PlayStation, you're just going to stick with what you play already, like Jeff said. If you're coming into it as a newbie, it really depends. If you're a hardcore gamer, you want the best games all the time, unless you have like the craziest TV or like the most modern TV, and the Xbox One is going to be able to be exploited by that television. I mean, the games are just on PlayStation right now. They were already. I'm a huge Microsoft fan. Always supported Xbox over PlayStation, and they already had more exclusives, and at E3 announced a ton more, and there was barely anything mentioned exclusivity-wise on the Xbox One. So I think if you're a gamer, PlayStation's your choice. If you're coming in, you're a casual gamer, you like stuff like sports and Call of Duty, and you have an amazing setup at home, go with the Xbox, because it's going to be the most bang for your buck spec-wise.
Right,
You
and
could
then
take
even
you could take into account too the fact that there's support now on Windows 10 to play Xbox games. I think
I
that's
was
a
about to
factor
say that,
too.
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, when I was talking about the network of players that you work or play with, I think that's a big factor too. Now that people who don't have either system, now there's compatibility between Xbox and Windows 10 systems.
That could be the one draw that brings some people to the Xbox One, that cross-play compatibility, and the fact that Microsoft owns both of those ecosystems. Then it might be easier to draw people to play PC games and Xbox games across platform with each other.
Right.
I could see that. That's the one approach I think Microsoft has with their strategy going forward.
I want to say that they're doing, at least they were for a little while, where if you bought any first-party Microsoft game, so Gears of War, Forza, Halo, stuff like that they own, when you bought it for one, you automatically had it on the other. So if you bought it, like I own Gears 4 digitally, and if I went over to your house, you have a Windows 10 PC, I can log into my account and play it on your PC.
Right.
Kind of like Steam.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And
I think from what it looks like, at least from this standpoint, is that Microsoft is trying to take over the media PC market more than console itself, especially with these hardware specs. This update, the 12 gigs of RAM, it looks like they're trying to build out the OS and so it can support more multitasking with all the various apps they support. It's going to be a lot more streaming. Right. That's what it looks like to me. I mean, they're not as focused on games like they used to be.
That's a really good point.
And that's something that I'm
all about the
entertainment
entertainment.
Too.
Right.
Yeah. And going off of what you said, Ryan, that's a good point. I want to see, we can look at the raw specs and compare them all day long, but until these benchmarks come out of what this thing can actually do and how powerful this thing is, I think at this point it's mostly speculation on which one's more powerful. Like, sure, the Xbox One is the best one on paper, but how much of that's going to it being a media center versus a game console?
Right.
So,
It's exactly what happened to PS3 and the 360. On paper, the PS3 was leaps and bounds ahead of the 360, and then side-by-side comparisons, there was negligible differences between the two. Mm-hmm. So it really does depend on what that power is going towards.
Right. Well, they have the expandable storage now, and that they're supporting expandable storage on both consoles, and they're kind of saying, well, hey, here's your console. Let's build out your library of movies or TV shows or whatever you want to listen to. It's going to be a one center point.
Plex support. Like a Plex media server for Xbox One X.
Maybe, right?
Plex media server, it's a different route. I know you can get the Plex app on a lot of different, consoles and devices, but I don't know about hosting the media server there.
Well, I mean, it is built off of XBMC.
Yeah.
Well, Shield does it, then NVIDIA Shield does it by default, and that's fairly powerful hardware, and the One X is definitely more powerful than that. But I'm not.
Yeah, it's some cutesy little Integra chip versus this Jaguar chip that they've got running.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I did want to pose a question to you guys too. What do you think about the future moving forward with consoles? The concept of modularity. They're starting to get in that direction with storage. Do you think it's ever going to get to the point where when a console becomes a little bit outdated, they'll offer a proprietary device you could swap in if you know what you're doing? Maybe upgrade the RAM, something like that.
I think you could see some kind of modularity, but also I'm convinced that there's some kind of point where at some point they're going to cross into like PC gaming, and it's going to intersect with that, and basically it's going to probably go back to some kind of enthusiast hardcore modularity. Like, you can buy the base console, or like you said, you can buy extra parts and make it a little bit beefier, and they're going to have to cater to both markets in order to actually, I think, kind of keep pushing this forward, because at this point it's just spec bumps on both sides. And what's that mean to a casual user? It doesn't mean a whole lot, like we were talking about earlier. And like Ryan, I know you have an Xbox One, and I know, do you primarily use that as a media center, or do you game often on it, or what's your?
I haven't used it in a while. I got this rig right here. I've been using more than anything, but when I was using it for specific games, and I did actually use it as a DVR for a while, and that was nice. I got to do like picture-in-picture and still be playing the game in the background or whatever. Mm-hmm. But
now, how do you feel about the One X? Is this tempting enough to make an upgrade hardware-wise, or?
I like the size. I mean, if it was white, it would go with my setup. You know what I mean? Maybe that would sell me. I don't know. But otherwise, $500 is a steep price. That's real steep, especially without the. Maybe if they had a new Halo that actually looked decent, in my opinion, I would go for it. But without that lineup, at least as of now, I'm not going to be sold on it.
I mean, and getting back to what I was mentioning too, I mean, you could probably just get it on your computer now. You have Windows 10,
Yeah, well,
almost
like
all of them on the listings had the PC and the Xbox parallel. There was almost nothing that was Xbox One exclusive.
Well, going back to what you said, Matt, I think that it's better for the game studios to support cross-console gaming. So once all games are cross-console supported, what's the point of having individual consoles?
At that point, it's whatever flavor you want.
Range. Right.
Yeah. So if do you also want a media console? Do you want a pure gaming experience? Do you want something like the Nintendo Switch has, where it's just kind of like a portable, kind of like high-powered console with interconnectivity and the docking setup that they have? And it's really going to come down to that, I think, also, as well as the modularity and the power. But Nintendo, I don't even think we can categorize in the console wars anymore. I think they're sticking with their guns with what they have going with the Switch. It looks like they're kind of putting all their stocks in that, but
Kyle disagrees.
They put all their stock in whatever new crazy thing that they are notorious for solving needs that no one had.
Yeah.
Like, hey, do you guys want to take this joystick and this little nunchuck and just throw it through your television on by accident? No, and then everyone bought it. And I was like, hey,
the Wii was cool though.
It was, but then like no one made a game for it after like the first 2 months.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, hey guys, you know how you all have DSs and you all love them because it outsold every console that we have? Yeah. What if you could take your console the same place you take your DS? I mean, that would
I think
want to ignore everything for the rest of your life? Yeah. Here's a 6-hour screen.
that's always been Nintendo's like prerogative. The portable gaming market, ever since they began in the mid 80s, their biggest success was in their portability. So it seems like it's like almost a return to form. Like they're moving away from the consoles and sticking to something that's a little more portable. Even if they keep doing their crazy innovations and their horrible logistics and shipping methodologies going forward, I think it's gonna be more mobile focused than it's gonna be with like an in-home console that lines up or stacks up next to like the Xbox or the PS4.
I remember watching the launch trailer for the Switch, and everything that they showed, I was like, oh come on, and then they finally hit, because I've always been a fan of Nintendo, but I feel like they shoot themselves in the foot a lot. And I guess maybe I want them to compete to be one of the better companies, and I think they're totally comfortable being third, just having their niche market and being cool with what they are. Like, I think they're totally fine with that, which is, if that's the decision you want to make, that's fine. But I think the one thing that they did that was key was during the trailer, you see a bunch of guys all geared up, and they are at a tournament, a gaming tournament, warming up in the hallway before they go into the main place on their portable screens playing Splatoon. And then they go in, slide their screens in. Now it's on the big screen, and then they're playing. So I think actually showing people like, hey, this thing, yeah, there are some pro gamers out there who play Splatoon and Smash Brothers and Mario Kart. Like, you can take this on the go and practice right before you play, rather than having to have a whole rig plugged here, or like the big suitcase style televisions where you're plugged in. Hey, our console does all of it.
Yeah.
True.
And I think that's where it's going to find success. But yeah, we could go. This is going to eventually just devolve into the war of the consoles all over again.
Yeah, pretty much.
Nintendo episode.
But I think overall it was a pretty good E3, aside from the fact that there was a lot of remakes and remakes of remakes and just sequels and not a lot of original content coming out. But overall, I thought it was
trailer for Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah, and now Skyrim runs on everything. It's going to be the new Doom.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen all the memes that are coming out? Like there was a picture on Reddit I saw earlier today where someone photoshopped in a screenshot of Skyrim running in on the heart rate sensor from Modern Warfare 2 on the side of the rifle. So I think that's going to be the new joke. Bethesda really dropped the ball this time, but like I said, we can talk all day about E3.
Right.
But in terms of upgrades that they're making with their consoles, I know going back on the WWDC conference, Apple announced the iPad Pro was going to be released in a 10.5 inch platform. Do any of you guys use an iPad or I know I've never used the iPad Pro, but that thing was massive when I was demoing in like the Apple Store, like playing around with the drawing and stuff. And I think this is this is kind of an interesting move for Apple to kind of bring this down to a smaller size. That's not quite like a 9-inch where they had with I think they released with the original iPad Pro, the 12-inch that they have, the big famous one, and then a smaller 9-inch iPad Pro. Now, what do you think of this kind of middle ground 10.5-inch? I saw it. I saw pictures of it compared to the bigger one, and it looks like it's a nice medium that they have, and it looks like it's mostly to get consumers ready for this switch in iOS where the tablet is becoming more like a workstation.
Yeah, so the difference between this iPad Pro and the previous regular iPad, not even the Pro one. So the previous Pro smaller version was the same 9.7 inches as the regular iPad. And now what they've done is increase the size just a tiny bit, and reduce the bezels. And then because of the bezels were so smaller, they could increase the size at quite a bigger rate than they actually increased the size of the physical size of the device, which I think is nice. I love Verge's review. I'm playing it to the side now. They literally just said this is overkill. Apple's just showing off at this point because there really isn't any other player in this tablet game at the moment. Android isn't doing much at the moment. Their
That's
sales
just the thing.
Reflected in sales, just to say that.
I think this isn't targeted at other tablets. I think what they're trying to reach is the high-end, like Ultrabook market, and going into even the people who want a bit more of a premium experience than a Chromebook.
I've seen videos. They have a version of iMovie that's running on these Pro devices that can edit 4 streams of 4K video all at once. You need a serious PC to do that, and that's really impressive that you can do that on an ARM chip running on a tablet without any lag introduced.
So that's what I think it's targeted as, more as like a creative person who isn't necessarily in one spot or needs a desktop solution, and also at the same time doesn't necessarily need the power behind a MacBook Pro or an iMac.
Right.
Wants a little bit more of a portability and kind of has a little bit more of like a casual approach to media creation. I think that's their take on this.
Yeah, that's definitely the direction I see them going as well, especially with the iOS 11 preview that we saw. It's completely changing how everything behaves on the actual device and making it more act like an actual laptop computer, as close to it. It's the next step towards that. I think maybe iOS 12 they'll fully figure out how to exactly make the device iOS act like macOS. As much as they could.
I like the changes they're making too. I mean, just from reading a bit about this, they have a higher resolution, but also it's capable of a refresh rate of 120 hertz.
And every review that I read, it's once you see it in person, you can't go back to another iPad.
That's exactly what I'm getting at. It's just probably going to be so nice, just so nice to use, and the performance increase that I'm reading about also with Apple Pencil, to just make it more like you're actually writing on paper, and when you're scrolling through articles, it's not like it's harder to notice that you're interacting with the device and it's not just this information source in front of you. If that makes sense. And I'm also reading about ProMotion technology, which it changes the refresh rate of the screen based on what you're doing.
Yeah.
So if you
they call it ProMotion.
Yeah, right. They're promoting themselves, but
oh my god.
Yeah, but that does factor in for the battery life it's boasting. 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever they're saying. I still got you with that one.
I wasn't ready for that one.
Yeah,
I wasn't ready.
What do you guys think of the price? So I'm gonna list off the price starting off.
Yeah, go for it.
The starting 64 gigabyte model, that's the base price. That's the lowest model that they sell, is $649, and it goes all the way to a 512 gigabyte storage model. That's $1,079, so $1,000 for a tablet. You think that that's too high? And that also includes $1,000 also includes LTE. with it. So that's the highest you can go with the full, go full wireless, full mobile, do everything that you want on this tablet.
So I'm going to approach my answer from two different sides, and anybody else can jump in if they have anything else they wanted to bring up about it too. But if you're looking at it as a tablet for purely media consumption, social media, the occasional bit of working on art, maybe if just because you have the power to do it, that I think it's hilariously overpriced. And anybody would be ridiculous to get this for someone who's going to use it for that use case. But that being said, I think that if you're using it in the same light as a portable media creation workbench tool or something like that, to where you have an artist who's doing sketches or animations, or a tattoo artist kind of doodling out what tattoo he's going to be working on the iPad Pro with the Apple Pencil, which they just reduced on this hardware to 20 milliseconds, which is so fast. It's pretty much as if you're just writing on paper anyway.
Right.
I think if you're looking at it from that angle, it's a bit more lucrative because you don't quite need a MacBook, like I said, and it's got a touchscreen. So I think in my response, that's how I would say. I would say yes if you're a professional artist or someone who's going to be using this for media creation.
Yeah.
But I would say no if you're taking it any other way.
Yeah, if you're just using it to browse the web, look at Facebook, and pay some bills, I would go with the cheaper. What is it right now? $349 for the cheapest iPad right now. That's more than enough for the majority of the people out there, I think.
Right. Yeah, this thing is overkill for anybody else.
Yeah.
Creative minds like to be mobile, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
you
then
never
also
know
you get the-
when creativity hits you, you know?
Well, see what
Exactly.
happens. See what happens with iOS 11 and iOS 12, just like you were saying before too.
yeah.
I think
Right.
that could change everything we're talking about in a good way
Yeah.
for Apple.
It's not even fair to consider it with iOS 10. It's built
Yeah.
for iOS 11.
Yeah, I was going to say that's what I
Right.
heard is that they really built it with iOS 11 in mind. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you think? Why don't you think they waited till iOS 11 was actually released before releasing this tablet? They just wanted to get it out in the market in people's hands.
Most of the
right?
software is already there.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. Most of it's there already. So people who are currently used to working with the iPad Pro 12-inch and don't need something as big can downsize a little bit and upgrade their hardware to something that's, I mean, even if it's running on iOS 10, spec-wise, it's still a lot better than the last generation
Right.
iPad Pro. So it's still an upgrade. And then even with the new upgrade coming forward, you can look forward to all kinds of upgrades. So people could purchase it as an investment knowing iOS 11 is right around the corner, or they could purchase it now for the pure ability of the spec boost, because I'm not sure if the Apple Pencil is going to be faster on iOS 10 or if that's dependent on that software update, if it's just hardware. But
Yeah.
Well,
that's what I'm thinking.
Also, from like a sales standpoint, you kind of garner interest now with the new hardware, and then when iOS 11 is out with it, that's another spark.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thompson,
Yeah.
I have a question for you. Would
Sure.
you consider buying this if it ran full Photoshop and Lightroom, like the full versions, not the iPad versions, and it was lightning fast and you could edit? Also, maybe Adobe Premiere, like Adobe Premiere would.
That would be
right?
stepping it up.
Like
yeah.
like doing full on 4K video editing on this machine. If it did all those three things,
I still am not sure that it currently has enough RAM to support all of that video editing, especially for 4K.
yeah,
The process is improved. I'm not sure you'd have enough memory on board.
yeah,
But personally, I think going back to why they're launching it early, I think that the next generation, when iOS 11 is out, is going to be a higher resolution screen. They're obviously focusing on the screens here for a reason. Because when I think of the iPad, it's kind of like a portable TV. When the hardware gets a little outdated, when the iOS versions they overtake it. You know what I mean? The hardware gets a little slow. What are you going to use it for? It's a TV. They use it for streaming. So right now is a good time for them to put it out right before the new iOS comes out. So that way, once the new iOS is out, it's like, oh, we got some decent hardware here now. Look, we can do with like a 5K screen or something like that as they keep moving up.
yeah.
And I think you release it for another. That's a great reason I didn't even think of. But another reason is, that the diehards are going to buy it regardless.
Right.
The diehard Apple fans, if it has that symbol on it, it's getting picked up.
Right.
They're going to show it to their friends before it's even at its full capability and garner interest just by word of mouth, just by showing it off to people. The second that iOS 11 update hits, you show all your boys, hey, you loved this thing before. Look at what it can do now. Look at how much better it looks, acts, whatever the update does to this device. And now it's like, ooh, I was kind of interested. I need it now.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if the 120 hertz stat is indicating anything close to maybe this being able to support refresh rates for a VR, like a portable VR solution. This is like wild speculation at this point, but I'm wondering, because 120 hertz refresh rate is what the PlayStation Pro or the PSVR headset has as its current as its latency, screen refresh stats, and I'm just wondering if maybe if it may offer some kind of light editing in a VR workspace, because you said it can edit 4K videos concurrently.
Are you painting a picture of a future where people are strapping iPads to their heads?
That would be a heck of a headset. I don't know if I'm trying to paint that kind of a picture, but the picture that I'm definitely painting is one where Apple is fully in the VR game.
Yeah. So during WWDC, they focused on a lot of AR, and also that they added VR support for the HTC Vive to their macOS built in natively. But I think AR on the portable side, and that includes the iPhone and the iPad, will be huge. And that might help the refresh rate might help that a little bit. I'm not sure. It'd be really good to see in person and see how that goes once it gets iOS 11 gets released and that those AR apps start launching on those devices, and see what people do with them. And
kind of moving on to the next topic, I guess we should just segue right on. I'm sure you guys saw the news breaking over the week of Travis Kalanick going on the leave of absence.
Sure did.
That company, like, every time I see some bad news in like any workplace ever, like it doesn't compare to what Uber has managed to do over the past 4 months. Like, it astounds me. They have there was the rumors or the email that came from one of the engineers, I think, of the Miami sex parties that came out recently, and all of these company policies, and Travis Kalanick apparently complaining that he couldn't partake, and a note to management and all that stuff. And what are your thoughts on this? Can Uber come back from something like this?
I mean, first off, it's Miami. That's just going to happen down there. I mean, it's just what happens in Miami. That's it. Go ask the Heat.
You don't do company confidential emails about that.
I mean, probably not. No, that was their mistake.
And he's even taking that leave of absence. You guys probably heard about his mother passed away in the boating accident.
Yep. His father's hospitalized.
I'm trying to think of what this guy must be going through now. His company's falling apart. He went through that. People were saying, oh, he's taking a vow to let the company ride itself into the wall and crash. But this is a lot of emotional stress, I think, for someone to go through. And I don't know if I want to call it too quickly on Uber and say that they're going to go down the pipes, because they're making all these moves, and they just hired the woman who was the highlight of Apple's WWDC conference last year. Her name is escaping me right now, but they just picked her up to kind of fix their PR. So I'm not, and she's a fantastic person at what she's been doing, and she's done a great job of publicizing Apple and all of the past work that she's done. And I just don't know if it's too little too late. I want to hear what you guys think about Uber and this whole thing.
Obviously they're in a bad place, right, with everything going on. But this is all, their attempt to save face however they can. I think that whatever moves they make, it may be too little too late. It's too soon to say, really, until you see what they're trying to do, what they're trying to change. If they try and change their public appearance based on what's happening, 'cause they need to do something. Right.
See, I don't think it's too bad yet. I mean, it is if you've done your research. Let me get there.
Okay. Yeah, I see where you're going.
It is if you've done your research, but I mean, Uber is almost like Band-Aid. Let me get there. When you get a bandage, you don't call it a bandage. You call it Band-Aid.
Mm-hmm.
People who are just general consumers of technology, if they're like, oh, I want to get a thing. You guys have Uber? That's it. That's what they know ride sharing as.
Right.
Ride sharing is Uber. Lyft doesn't even come out of most people's mouths. If I suggest Lyft because I know that it's more prominent in a certain area, people will seriously tell me, I don't want another app on my phone. Really? I'll send you a thing that'll give us a free ride home right now. Nah, I don't want another app on my phone. You took 76 pictures of your lunch this afternoon. You don't want the cheaper option? And now the better company possibly run better,
right.
At least on some aspects, and
I mean,
better PR. They're doing a lot of things, a lot of small moves that are in the right direction versus bad publicity on the other end. I mean, yeah, they're slowly moving in that direction, but I think the general populace still just thinks, oh, I don't even care what they do. It's just Uber gets me there, so Uber's the answer.
True.
you see, I kind of fall into the other boat because I actually had uninstalled the app after the first round of crazy stuff that happened, and that can be speculated both ways. And I live in a major city, so that kind of isn't really going to hinder my use case for using a car service such as Uber or Lyft or anything like that. So I could see how some people, much in the way that people associate, like Uber is a noun that people it's like saying, oh, just Google it, or like you said, put a Band-Aid on, or use a Kleenex or something like that. Like it's so synonymous and ingrained in our language that people naturally go to that app first. And even more so, it can even fall into similar territory like the cable service, where Lyft isn't as good because no one's signed up for Lyft because Uber is so ingrained that it would take someone maybe an hour to get a Lyft ride versus calling an Uber. The car comes in 15 minutes if you live in a less dense area.
Lyft used to take way longer. I mean, I remember one time a mutual friend of all of ours, Sean, and I, we went into the city to watch one of the McGregor fights. And I was like, dude, get a Lyft. It's a little bit cheaper. Call a Lyft. And it was like wait time, like 25 minutes. And I was like, all right, I'm kind of curious. Went to Uber. It was like wait time 5. And it was like $2 more. And I was like, oh, now granted, this was a couple years ago or a year plus ago. But I think I thought that Uber might try and drop some of their prices because we talked about their new pricing model that they did on one of the previous episodes. And I've found still that they're almost the same price every time, or Uber's been a little bit cheaper for me recently. I'm not going crazy far, but I mean, people are going to look at the price and just say, oh, well, that's the one then.
Mm-hmm. That could be a number of things. That could be just at the time, it could be them doing damage control and like, oh, okay, we'll lower our prices a little bit just to kind of like artificially inflate their numbers a little bit.
Right.
But I know, like I've actually kind of gotten into the habit of bringing this up when I'm in a Lyft. I'll just ask them like what got them into doing the ride share and if they like what they're doing or have they driven for Uber. And a lot of them actually drive for both, but a lot of them have told me, and this is even when I was in Ubers also, a lot of them have told me that they prefer Lyft. They just think they feel more like they're being treated like a person by their company. And there's a little bit more respect kind of down the ladder from Lyft. So it's more like internally the weight is definitely favored towards Lyft, but I just don't know because this is a PR nightmare. Like every week, Uber is doing something crazy, and it's just how many people can they offend? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's all about how they handle it from here. If they bring the right people in, say the right things, and make the right moves, they could recover easily. I mean, organizations have done way worse things and recovered just fine. So I think
Tylenol.
Yeah. I mean, you could bounce back from it, but they have to do the right things and they have to get ahead of it. They have to start doing it now. They can't just wait. Yeah,
and they are making moves like Travis Kalanick, who's been arguably referred to by media sources and other people as more of a toxic CEO for the company. And you have other moves they're making, like they have laid off the 20 employees who were charged with sexual harassment, and they also fired, I think among them was their head of their marketing expansion team in their Asian market, which is their largest growing sector. And he's been a huge part of making sure that happens. So the fact that they cut him out means that it could be viewed from externally that they are taking this seriously and they do see a problem and they're trying to fix it.
Right.
So I think they can fix it, but it's going to take some changes. And even Facebook went through these growing changes. Mark Zuckerberg had to take like PR classes to like learn how to be a human being in front of other people.
Yeah, he was such a bad presenter at one of the first public functions that he's done that was recorded. It was really, really bad. You could physically see him sweating through his sweatshirt.
And I physically was cringing every time I saw that too. Oh man. Yeah, they were impressively cringy. His first conferences. But speaking of impressively cringy,
yep.
You guys
say the same thing.
That's a great segue.
I was going to say the same thing, Matt.
You guys saw
Segway King.
That special tweet from a very certain U.S. political
special guy.
Yeah. And I mean, you can't blame him for deleting it because it's a ridiculous tweet and it's gotten a lot of press cafef, but it's something that I think that he needs to consider what he's tweeting about when he's on his late night benders on Twitter. And everything he says has to be logged in the National Archive by law. Everything he says is a public statement on any public platform. And this new bill that we found an article on thehill.com was saying that Congress introduced a new bill to make it illegal for the president to delete his tweets by making it a part of the presidential record formally and officially. I'm not sure what the bridge here between his public statements as a U.S. president having to be logged in the National Archives versus this medium.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah. Okay. In my opinion, I think it should be because the times are changing, and now I think from presidents on, they're gonna have a Twitter account. They're gonna be more vocal on him, and I think whatever they say on these type of social media platforms, as we've seen with Trump so far, has an effect on what goes on in the country. Right? They have an effect on the people. So it's a new communicator. Like we had with previous presidents, that earlier on when the radio came out, we had those fireside chats where everyone would sit around the radio and listen to the president give a talk and what their view on the current topics were. And now in 2017, it's Twitter. That's Twitter. That's where people go to see what's on the president's minds, what they're going to do that day, and that's where we're going to be posted. So I think this is appropriate to include, and it's not just Twitter, it's social media in general. Mm-hmm. Will be included as part of the presidential records.
Yeah, but how do you guarantee that that's him sending that message? I know that he takes responsibility for a lot of his tweets, but you have all these celebrities and public figures out there that do have PR reps who tweet for them. So how can you put him on record unless you can witness him actually tweeting it?
There was a way that actually people were able to tell during the election, and I've noticed it's still true to a degree. When he's traveling for conferences, I've noticed on certain Twitter apps they'll tag the device that the tweet comes from. And I know ever since the San Bernardino shooting and that whole debacle with Apple where they wouldn't give up the user data on the phone, Donald Trump has openly boycotted Apple products. And when he was on the road on the campaign trail, or immediately after he said some like brutally inflammatory stuff, and people were like, okay, we got to take your Twitter away for a while so we can like have normal coverage, you would see his tweets come through on an iOS device. But on these late night binges, you can see that they're coming from an Android device.
Yeah.
So.
And I think it's pretty reliable that you can, well, it might be incorrect to state, but I think if you look at the real Donald Trump Twitter account, it's more than likely coming from him. And that if you look at the @POTUS one, it's probably the media from the White House coming from them.
And also,
more
it's
than likely.
Unlike other Twitter accounts, this one is a verified account as Donald Trump. So I think it's to be assumed that all tweets coming from that account are him or are his accurate thoughts and representations of his experiences at that time.
Yeah.
Well, that being said, there's still possible ways to hack that account, aren't there?
Yep.
Yep.
Say whatever you want
Definitely is.
in the name of the president of the United States.
I don't doubt that they're coming from him. That's not what I'm trying to say. But just to put it on official record, I think they need. I mean, I'm sure they have, but you need to do homework.
Right. Can
Well,
you
yeah,
imagine being the guy that logs these into the National Archives? Like typing these tweets in?
There's got to be a feed, though. It's got to be automated.
Oh, they got a
He's
post
definitely
processor for that.
He's definitely going to say that his Twitter was hacked on multiple occasions.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't know, man. It's hacked.
By
That
the way,
actually came from fake Donald Trump? No.
just to
Literal Donald
interject
Trump,
here,
please stand up.
just to interject, Matt. I am looking at a BuzzFeed, not the best source, but a BuzzFeed survey, and 37% of voters think it's a Kafifi. Just so you know.
Kafifi, okay.
Yeah. 19%. Second place is Kafefe.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Kafef is 8% of the vote.
So we got Kafifi then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't
All
know. Did you mention the actual name? It's named after
that's
what he
a great
said.
point.
Yeah.
Oh, the
So it's-
acronym spells.
Yeah. So it's
It's a COV.
Yeah,
go
so
ahead.
the
Go ahead, Irvin.
act officially is named the Communications over Various Feeds Electronically for Engagement Act, which that acronym spells out.
They tried real hard.
Oh,
Yeah, that was a stretch.
So this particular representative, Democratic representative Mike Quigley, this is the second time that he's done this. He has a record for making acts that take jab at the president. So the previous one to this was making access records available to lead American government openness, which if you shorten that, it's shortens to Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, my God.
So that
Not all
act-
heroes wear capes.
Yeah, that act was to force the president to make the White House visitor logs as well as visitor logs to the Trump resorts public.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah,
And they're legitimate bills that they're introducing, which
right.
I would argue is like this stuff should be public record if for some reason it isn't. And I know there was the recent the news that broke about the travel ban that was pushed to the appeals court. That was actually overturned in one of the Court of Appeals, and they actually cited one of his tweets as an official statement for the ruling against the travel ban. It was one of I don't know the exact tweet word for word, but it was the one where he was calling for a real travel ban and not some politically correct travel ban that's written by politicians. But the fact that these are being cited as official statements in themselves signifies the importance of what he says is going to be recorded forever in American history. So it'll be very entertaining to read the National Archives from 2016 to 2020.
Yeah, it's like Sean Spicer and the crew can look back on the inside joke because apparently the president and a small group of people knew exactly what Kafifi meant and it wasn't a typo. Yes, that is a statement that was made.
I think what he needs to do for all you sports fans out there is go out there and hire Herm Edwards. Do you guys remember that at all?
I don't.
Herm Edwards, 2011. He's used to play in the NFL. He's a Jets coach for a while, ESPN NFL analyst as well. He gave a speech to rookies. He said, "You guys can even help me out with this. I need to take all your phones and install an app that runs your Twitter, but instead of send, when you you type all that stuff you're about to say, then it says, don't press send. So you can think about the dumb stuff you were about to send out into the world. That is there forever." He's like, why do it to yourself?
Yep.
Don't press send. And then he used that for years after that video went viral. Like anytime someone said something stupid online that was anything related to football, don't press send. It's all over the internet. I told you for years, don't do it. Don't do it. Because all it's going to do is get you in trouble.
Especially because people are going to spin it whatever way. And also the fact that he deleted it, which some people are calling for editing of tweets, which would have been fine. Like that would have been fine if he had edited it, as long as they track the. I don't know how that would work for the National Archives if they have to post everything or not. But
yeah, they can just provide a full audit trail, right?
Yeah, they could. If they have that capability, yeah.
I mean,
but I'm not sure how that would work if any presidents have actually had to record addendums on anything they've said. So,
can you declare a state of emergency through a tweet?
Oh my
If
goodness.
it's an official statement.
Can you declare war through a tweet?
oh,
Well,
geez.
Congress would have to do
yeah.
that, but you can declare a conflict, I believe, as
Oh,
president.
you're right. Okay.
So I have a cool question. Did Obama, were all his tweets like from @POTUS, were they all officially recorded as well? I would imagine it's the same thing, but
I
Right.
think
Yeah,
I
they
think
were.
the Library of Congress recorded all of his tweets, and
Okay.
then once he was done being president, his full account was transferred over to a new Twitter account and fully archived on
Okay.
Twitter. And
Makes sense.
now he can use that account, and it has a full history of everything he said while he was president under that new account.
but so this act would then include all @POTUS and @Real Donald Trump.
I would
So both would be fully
right.
recorded forever.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's very dangerous.
Agreed.
I don't.
It'll be
think,
one to remember though.
Yeah.
People will look in the history books and be like, "What?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
You guys lived through that?"
What was Twitter? Yeah.
Right. Almost
So,
Twitter, exactly.
so on that note, I think that covers all we have to say for the first half here. If you guys are ready to take it into a break.
Good with me.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
So,
We'll be right back.
yeah, this is I4O. We'll be back after a short break. Thanks.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Industry 4.0. Kyle Fisher here. We got a full house still. Irvin, Matt, Ryan, and of course Jeff. Before we get into the second half, just remember you can always find our show page hosted on podbean.com at Industry40, all spelled out, .podbean.com. And you can find us on Google Play, Industry 4.0. iTunes, same thing, Industry 4.0, as well as Facebook.com/Industry40. We have a nice little compare and contrast situation coming up here. Slavin and Jeff did a little testing of some betas this week. Slavin, why don't you let us know how that went?
Right. So we announced respectively in the past 2 episodes the Android updates that were coming to the Android O operating system and the iOS 11 update that was coming out in the later parts of this year at both of their respective events. And me and JBuds have taken it upon ourselves to use both of the beta programs as our daily drivers. So to start it off, I have a Nexus 6P, so I've been using the Android O developer preview, and it's gone through the first 2 iterations. The developer preview 1 was just the initial alpha release of the preview with some basic things that I wasn't really ready for a daily driver. And when I picked it up was at the developer preview 2, where it was kind of stable enough for end users and people who aren't exactly developers to start downloading it and just trying to test out the new Android O features. And with this latest update, the developer preview 3, they finalized this is going to mean nothing to a lot of people, but they finalized all of the APIs, which is the only difference really between Developer Preview 2 and 3, aside from some minor UI tweaks. But the APIs now mean that developers of third-party apps can begin preparing their apps, like Facebook or Snapchat or something, can begin preparing their apps for the official release of Android O. And my experience with it has been really good so far. I have no overall complaints. There's a few apps that crash and stutter here and there, and it is definitely beneficial to reboot my device once every couple of days just to kind of keep everything running smoothly. And a couple of the big features that I've come to really like are the picture-in-picture mode that they enabled with YouTube. It's awesome to be able to go into YouTube and watch like a tutorial on something and then drop out of that with the video playing in the corner and then go and respond to a text. And then cut right back into the video when I'm done without any loss. And it's even nice also if I'm listening to a music video and I don't have YouTube Red, so I don't have the background play for YouTube, I can go into the YouTube, kick the music video on, throw that off into the corner of my screen, and then continue doing whatever else I was doing on my phone without any interruption in my use case for the phone.
I'm sure YouTube's not going to be happy about that, though.
I don't know. They enabled it in all their apps so far. It's in YouTube. It's in Google Play Movies. It's if you want YouTube Red, you're definitely going to save money by being able to turn your screen off, and you'll save battery also, which is a big thing. But I think it's a nice feature, and it'll be interesting to see if that makes it all the way through into the final Android operating system, because they have it in their Android TV systems already. And another feature that I've come to like is the reskinned UI. There's been a lot of hate around the reskinning of the operating system. And Ryan, I don't know if I showed you this or not yet, but I'll hold it up to the camera. My home screen, if you were to swipe down and take a look at the notification shade, you can see it's white instead. Wow.
Yeah.
So it's totally different, and it's a little more laid out. It's laid out a little more differently than other Android ones. And I know yours is a dark theme.
Yeah, dark.
I don't know how, and I can see. You know how Android users like their light and dark themes. So you can see a lot of people kind of crying out in agony as they do that. But just to go over a couple of the other features, they just recently in the Pixel launcher added the new icon shapes for Android. So what they're doing is they're adding support to change the shape of your icon so everything can conform to the same look. Because Android, unlike Apple, utilizes, I think, more of like a vector style than just making everything conform to the same like kind of rounded corner square app icon. So they're trying to kind of enhance the uniformity of their apps across the styles. So they have 4 different layouts. Their icon shapes are, some of them are named a little bit ridiculously. They have square, which is just as it is. It's just a regular square. They have rounded square. My favorite is squircle, which is like really weirdly ridged squares with like kind of a rounded corner type deal. And they have teardrop, which looks similar to how the Allo and Duo app icons look. So I don't know. I would recommend it if anybody wants to try it out and has a Nexus device or a Pixel device. But be warned that some apps may not work. Like I was trying to order dinner on the Yelp Eat 24 app. I was trying to order pickup, and it wouldn't even let me check out paying for cash. Like even if I didn't want to use a card in the app, it wouldn't let me check out with the food, and the app kept crashing. And also, Snapchat, even more so than it already is a steaming pile of hot garbage on the Android O beta. It is slow. My phone gets ungodly hot when I open up Snapchat, and you can definitely tell that it's like it takes me like I wanted to take a snap of something that I saw outside, and it took me 3 minutes to get the camera ready for a picture.
Oh man!
Wow.
And then it took.
So you walked away from that thing, right?
The thing walked away from me. It was done.
There you go.
It was like some construction workers like having a loud argument or something like that, and I was just trying to like zoom in on them and like get a funny snap with like try to see if I can get the little things to lay on their faces, like the face overlays.
Stickers,
Yeah. And I just couldn't do it. But aside from that, it's been good. I'm really liking it overall, and it has had a noticeable beneficial increase to my battery. So they included notifications that'll start to like let you know when or like which processes are running in the background, and you can see data on what kind of power they're using and how much power they're using in a percent per hour kind of level, and you can get really granular and remove the permissions that the app needs to do that if you don't want to doing that in the future. The battery settings have improved tremendously. So overall, I would give it a very positive review. I don't know if it's quite ready for everyone to pick up as a daily driver, but for someone willing to deal with the faults for the sake of field testing a new OS, it's definitely worth it. But I'm curious to see how that compares to iOS 11.
Yeah. So generally, I'm excited about it. I'm happy to have had the opportunity to use it, and I do see a lot of improvements from my end. There's the new control center, which I'm sure people have seen, which involves these two larger bars for adjusting brightness, volume. You have all your different things that you want to configure from the old control center here. It's just more user-friendly. As Irvin and I have discussed, there's a lot of bugginess that you get when you're working with something that's in beta. So I've seen where I bring up the control center and I can't get it to go away. I literally had to, do a full reboot of my phone to avoid that. But I'm not anticipating that being a problem in the future.
Yeah.
So, some other things that I like, when you're on your home screen, you can now swipe right, and you have your agenda, your notification center. What you previously had to swipe from the top, which didn't always work well, and it didn't really make a lot of sense. Now you just swipe right from your home screen, and there you go. I have my calendar alerts. I have my travel times from Google Maps, which I do use Google Maps on my iPhone. Reminders, you can customize what you want to see here, like your VIP mail accounts, important messages, battery notifications, whatever you're looking for. One thing I can show, because I've cleared it out, is you have like a new, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's like a new kind of layout to the menu structure. You have this bold text in the top left. It's a lot more like user friendly from the UI.
Okay.
And basically every staple screen in the iPhone layout kind of looks like this now, where you have this bar with the bold and then your list underneath. It just is a little easier to use. Again, with the beta, I have seen issues where when I go into my folders and tap an app icon, it'll highlight it as if it's going to open and hang there. You have to tap it again. So that's something to look out for if you're anticipating on testing this in the beta stage, but I don't see it being an issue when it's released officially. The transition speeds, nice and quick. Battery life, it seemed unaffected, if not better, which obviously I like. If you've heard our previous podcasts, I've had issues in the past with battery life on this phone. Aside from that, not a ton that I can talk to more than that. I haven't, from a daily use standpoint, I haven't dived into, harness the full capability of what they're changing, at least from a smartphone standpoint. I would be curious to try out what's changed on an iPad, but I'm not an iPad user. So,
right. And have you experienced do your apps still work fine? Like, is your Snapchat experience interrupted in any way? Or?
Actually, Snapchat's great. There's no issue there. Yeah, I haven't seen any issue with any app. Maybe there's the tiniest details on Facebook. If I'm viewing someone's profile, I can't click their profile picture and look at it. It's small stuff like that. Because I've been trying to test everything I can with the apps I have. But generally, The mail looks great. Regular apps I use like Skype, we use a lot to communicate. Snapchat, Discord, Instagram, anything like that, no issues whatsoever. Everything's nice and smooth.
What do you think of the new Siri voice?
I like it.
How has Siri been? Have you tested Siri a little more? I know we talked that we don't really use Siri all that often. You haven't used Siri.
I do. When I'm driving, I use Siri for texting or voice recognition for things like Skype, when I have to message coworkers or something like that. And I don't think it's let's see how to put this. It hasn't gotten worse as a result of the iOS 11 update, but it hasn't been a significant improvement either for me. There may be new functionality I haven't known to test, but sometimes I'll say some basic phrases and I'll get it wrong, and that's frustrating. I enunciate specifically on my second and third tries, and it still has issues, but
that could change too across the betas.
I think it will. I don't know how extensive the contents of the releases I have are. I can't really speak to what I expect to see versus what's here now. I can only hope for improvement. I do wholeheartedly expect for any lagginess or kind of bugginess with the way the OS itself is operating to be fixed, though, when it's actually released.
Yeah, and they have some time. It shouldn't be released till the fall, and they'll have several previews released to people throughout that time. And this is just the first beta. I know the first public beta comes out at the end of this month. So in a couple weeks, you'll get the first public beta. So anyone, right now you need a special developer account to access this particular beta. But once the public one gets released, you can sign up yourself and go to Apple's website and sign up to participate in the beta, and you want to try it yourself, you can go ahead. And that should be a little bit more stable than what the version that Jeff has now.
I'm excited with it, though. It hasn't affected my daily use. I expected it to kind of mess with me a little more, but it's been fine.
Now, does unenrolling from the beta in iOS work the same way as it does in Android? Do either of you know that? Because as a PSA, if you unenroll from the beta for Android O, it requires a full device wipe.
Yeah. And this is the same here. But it doesn't do it right on the phone itself. You have to connect it to iTunes and do a full reset there to go back to the first or the original version of the operating system.
So it's just kind of restoring to a previous point at that point. It's not the same way as Android where I lose everything unless I'm using my own third-party backup solutions, or if I have my contacts backed up to Google, I lose it all.
Yeah.
So
as long as you made a backup to iTunes, and you can restore that backup if you restore the old version. You just have to ensure that you delete. There's a special certificate that it installs when it installs the beta that allows it to get those updates from Apple.
Right.
Okay. That's good to know. That's definitely really good to know. And to go back to the O beta, I mentioned that you have to reboot the phone sometimes once or twice a day, depending on what apps I'm trying to use. To highlight that, normally if I were to show you the Android boot process, we would be on this for probably 20 more minutes. But I have the screen up now, and if I hit the reboot, I can kind of talk during this while it does it. But the Android system was completely rewritten from the ground up in order to accommodate a faster boot speed. So, Ryan, I know your experience with the Nexus 6P, the boot speed can be in the span of several minutes or a very long period of time. But this phone has now fully powered off, and it's moving into a power up at this point. But they focused on redoing the app architecture and going into an overwrite. So completely rewriting it from the ground up. And this thing boots now in probably less than 20 seconds at this point. So it does the little Google boot animation, and it moves into the Android, and then it's done. It's something that's it's impressive how fast it is.
Yeah.
But
it's definitely a step
up. And then it's done. So it's already
nice. That's not bad. Yeah.
Android used to take, like, I swear to God, that was a 5-minute process last
yeah.
time.
Oh yeah.
This is like, this is less than a minute.
This makes me want to try this out. See how fast my phone goes.
Right. And because that was Android was, like I said, they were totally re-architecturing or building a whole new architecture under the hood for Android, so that way they could kind of abstract the more core processes to the phone to Android itself, and make it easier for phones made by third-party carriers running Android O to develop their stuff on top of that layer. So that way they can push critical Android security updates under the hood by completely bypassing the carrier hooks and the manufacturer hooks into the phone. So that going forward, you should see Android starting to kind of catch up to iOS in terms of user integration to the latest operating system for Android 8.0 onwards, which is exciting. But
Very nice.
It's going to
But,
take a
uh,
while, I think.
yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So you still have phones running Cupcake
Yeah.
or Gingerbread, I mean. So
Probably Cupcake as well.
probably. Yeah.
Was it,
But
on my phone too, it was about 40, 45 seconds to
Yeah.
boot up. So
mhm. They're getting way more efficient and way more powerful. And like I said, I would be hesitant to recommend the Android beta to someone who depends on their phone for critical things. Like I wouldn't do it on a work phone or something like that.
No, same here.
Yeah, but if you're using it for in the Android O, using it for like Google services, and you don't play like a lot of video games, or you don't have a lot of third-party apps you depend on, I would say go ahead.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a smooth experience. But
It's fun,
yeah,
right? We get to
What
talk
app-
about it here. So
yeah, and to move on to the next topic, one app that I haven't tried yet is Lyft on the Android O beta, but Lyft has been kind of the polar opposite of Uber in terms of exciting news and PR. They currently got a deal from Boston, a $125 million investment from Jaguar. That's it for the self-driving cars. That's pretty awesome. It's kind of like Uber's Carnegie Mellon deal, where they were able to invest in that.
Apparently, they gave them a fleet of vehicles as well as a $25 million investment.
Oh, really?
well,
Yeah.
I think that might be included in the 25 million.
Oh, okay.
It's
I either misread or just read a bad article.
it's a little ambiguous. But yeah, regardless, Jaguar Land Rover is investing 25 mil in Lyft.
Which is small compared to it. Looks like General Motors gave it 500 million back in December 2015.
Yeah.
Investment.
Do you know about that focus of the GM investment? If they specified anything, what they're targeting in doing so, or is that just to kind of get GM cars out there?
No,
I think it was just general purpose research.
No, it's to develop self-driving cars. Give it 500 million to focus on developing self-driving cars.
Yeah, that was what I meant by that, not just researching whatever.
So adding to the pot then, JLR, and it's a focus on autonomous vehicles.
I think that's a focus for both Lyft and Uber at the moment. They want to get rid of drivers as quickly as possible, so they can keep that cut. Keep that cut that they're paying out to drivers at the moment. They want to reduce that to zero and keep everything.
Lyft is just pulling the rug out a little bit nicer.
Right.
Well, the president and co-founder of Lyft, John Zimmer, is quoted as saying that he's anticipating the majority of the rides provided by Lyft to be in autonomous vehicles by 2021. So, 3.5 years.
I know that we touched on it a little bit in a past episode, but what would make you feel comfortable to just get in a call for an Uber, get in a vehicle with no driver, and just hope that it gets you there?
Alcohol. No, sorry. Honestly,
You're not
call a cab.
But
It's just so freaky to me.
I'm seeing,
let them get in it first. Dudes who made it. You get in it. You tell me if it works.
I know Uber was incentivizing people in Pittsburgh for this with free rides when they unrolled their self-driving car thing, which kind of made people feel a little more comfortable that they weren't paying money to be a part of this like weird beta testing experience. And also I think a lot of states are going to pass legislature, at least in the beginning, that those cars are going to have to be chaperoned by an emergency driver just in case if something happens.
Yes.
Like you're not just going to have this piece of this four wheels and no steering wheel, like hub of a car pull up and everybody just hops on in and goes off to wherever they're headed.
I believe that's how the JLR deal is set up as well, because they're providing drivers with these cars.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be someone in the car, but
it's going to take a while for people, especially people who are more used to other people driving cars, to kind of get over the hurdle of letting a machine take over. But after seeing like a lot of those Tesla videos that came out where the Tesla car is predicting it's calling out an accident like 3 cars up on a highway that's happening at a fast speed, and watching those, it looks to me like cars are getting, and sensors in cars are getting a lot better at being smarter drivers than people, both at predicting accidents and at making maneuvers on the roads.
I'll tell you right now, if you sent a Lyft car here that was, something reputable and was self-driving, as long as you don't lock the doors on me from the inside in the back seat, I'd get in it right now.
Child locks. Yeah, I would totally jump in that too.
Yeah, I would try.
I'm ready to do self-driving cars. I'm tired of. I want to be able to like sit in traffic and throw on like the self-driving mode and just relax.
Yeah.
I would have to like go to a closed course with people with notepads, like taking notes, making sure I'm okay. Like mattresses set up all over the place in case it flips and I fall out. Like I guess like I'm a little old school. Like, I don't know. I'd rather be in control of it, or someone who I trust to be in control. Well, I guess not. I don't trust people who drive Lyfts and Ubers and cabs all the time. I don't know. Having that human element, I feel like, is just. Maybe it's legacy thinking. I don't know. Maybe I'm just stuck in the past. But
I'll tell you what. Go ahead, Matt.
I was saying it's definitely like it's good to have that conflicting perspective and like someone who's nervous about it, because that means that the legislature that's going to get written for those self-driving cars is going to be written with everybody in mind and all of these opinions considered, and it will be safe enough for people who are thinking, like as you said, with a more legacy mindset, to make them more comfortable to make the push into getting into a self-driving car. So I think that's good that you have people who aren't just like, yeah, throw me into it, I'll see where it takes me, and if I hit a wall, then oops, that's fine. But like it's good that you have people who are taking this from like a much more cautious perspective, and I think that is just as beneficial, if not more beneficial, to how this stuff is going to be implemented than actually just being fully gung-ho. So I respect that opinion wholeheartedly.
We're going to find out pretty soon, based on other recent news in Boston, that Lyft's partnering with a startup called Nutonomy, that they're looking to put thousands of on-demand autonomous vehicles on the road in Boston. And they're intended to launch a pilot of this program in as soon as a few months. So, we'll see how people respond in Boston to this. But yeah, it's looking like by the fall they're going to have cars on the road ready to pick you up with no driver.
Oh man!
Yeah.
All right, so we can all go there, and you guys said you would get in right away. So you guys try it, and then I'll see if you crash or not, and that'll help.
Yeah,
and
you take a regular Uber driver and see who gets there first and who's safer, and we'll see who gets water. You're probably going to get the water bottle. We're not. So
yeah, his car will have the mints in it. And the phone chargers.
I get the aux cord. You guys get like XM radio.
Right. We'll have like surveys and research papers to fill out while we're driving on like our experiences. Heart rate monitors too.
I wouldn't mind trying them out. Like I wouldn't mind trying them out, but I'd like to see some statistics behind it that proves that they're pretty safe. And I know there are a lot out there now, but when I see something like this, it's like, oh, corporations trying to make a big jump really quickly. We're going to deploy a bunch of cars in a city. Well, where's the regulation that says, hey, you're not allowed to beta test on people? Because basically all these cars are going to be driving around with regular people at the same time. They're just allowed to do that.
Right. And you have Teslas too. Like if it was a Tesla, I would somehow feel much more safe getting into that car than if it was like a Ford Focus with a big radar
Right.
kit on top of it.
Exactly.
So,
That's my feeling.
like-
Well, actually, you're pretty close, but it's actually touching on what Irvin was talking about with GM. It's a driverless Chevy Bolt.
Oh, okay.
That's their go-to right now.
Surprised it wasn't like a driverless Jaguar, like XJ220 or something like that.
Yeah, and right now it's still required for someone to be behind the wheel. So as they're testing these out in different cities, someone's gonna be always behind the wheel with a big red button that cuts it off if something that they notice isn't going the way that it should. Because right now it isn't legal for cars to drive themselves without anyone behind the wheel.
How
Yeah.
permanent do you think that is?
The regulation on that right now.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's going to take the most estimates what I've seen that technology will be there in about 3 to 4 years at where it's at least as safe as a human or if not better driver. And some people are saying maybe 2 or 3 years additional to that for the government to review the findings and get that data from these manufacturers to get the proof that it is actually that much safer, and then they're going to pass that regulation. So I'd say 7 to 10 is a safe bet before it is legal for someone not to be behind a wheel and then just fall asleep, right? Press a button, take me home, fall asleep, wake up at your destination. That type of full driving autonomy, I think, is at least 7 to 10 years out. But that's a lot quicker than most people think, in my opinion. At this rate.
Right.
It's kind of interesting to think about, like what you were touching on, Matt, is how they're trying to get away from what they have to give to the driver. If it's going to be that far down the road, you have to think about are they just banking on the future, cashing in on this technology, or is it maybe to avoid collisions or like interaction with the driver in general? Things like, if a driver's tardy to their pickup, just, I'm kind of curious what the immediate benefit for these companies is.
Yeah. I think it's going to be raw numbers all the way down the line until you start seeing them actually replace drivers. Like these cars have driven X number of miles with 0 accidents or something like that. I think it's going to be heavily dependent on those numbers before you start seeing people being replaced by cars. They're going to have to prove it.
I think there's two things. The first one that I'm going to say is a joke. I just think it's less congestion the more autonomous cars we have, because no one's like looking because a cop has someone pulled over for 25 seconds and slowing down. I think you'll see like a more steady traffic pattern. So that's only like kind of joking. But I think the people who take the risks of driving while intoxicated or under the influence, I think if they are in a car that's driving automatically, but they still have the ability to override in case of an emergency, I think they are going to be more willing to take a risk that they wouldn't have taken if they were the one driving the entire time. Now, granted, if the car's doing its job, then hopefully that person doesn't have to step in, but I think you could see that happen as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a future, it might be way off. Maybe I'd say my guess, 25, 30 years, it might be fully illegal for you to drive your car. It might even take 30 to 40. But at some point, it's going to be illegal, in my opinion, to actually drive your car, because it's going to be that much more unsafe.
What a crazy thing.
They could do the breathalyzers just to start the thing up if you have to be in there and manning it just in case of emergency. They could always do it that way. Hey, guess what? Yeah, it might get you there, but you're supposed to still be paying attention. So, sorry, man.
Or
you don't get to drive.
It might be like well, I don't disagree with what you're saying about a breathalyzer, but it might be kind of like a firearm permit where you have to go through extensive testing and, all these legal hoops. There you go. Yeah. To actually have permission to do this.
You get a license, like a classic license.
Yeah.
It might even go
the still own classic cars and stuff. That market's always going to be around.
Right. Yeah. it could even go the way of like horses too, where it becomes something that happens only on closed courses or for sport or in like small areas.
If you want to
Go to the track.
Drive, yeah, exactly. I was just about to say, go to the track if you want to
Wear fancy hats. Giddy up.
You can see like car polo on like motorcycles in the future.
It would be like legit Tron.
It would, yeah. I could see that future happening. I could totally see that.
Autonomous tow trucks, autonomous flatbeds.
I mean,
Pretty
have you
well
guys seen? Did you guys see the Logan movie? Where they?
Yeah.
It's nothing is being spoiled in saying that, but I think in part of the movie they definitely portray like how trucking is going to be in the future. It's just like basically just cargo shipping crates on like autonomous like skateboards that are flying down the highway, like avoiding traffic patterns and slowing down for incidents and stuff like that. Like, I think that's definitely where we're headed, and it's just a matter of getting everybody on board.
Spoilers, dude. Come on.
Come on, man.
There's some guy out there that's like, man, I wanted to see how the trucks were in Logan.
Kind of tying into what Kyle was getting at there. I don't know if one of you guys wants to take the lead on this, but also there's a Ohio judge who's mandating that some people partake in Uber and Lyft. Anyone want to grab that one?
Oh, where they're talking about the DUIs and if you've been charged with a DUI or you need to call an Uber, or is it the one?
So
I'm a little yeah.
So the article itself, the judge is actually mandating that some people charged with DUI, it's noted here is OVI, operating a vehicle impaired, that they must download a ride-sharing app like Uber or Lyft, and it's also mandated that they enter their credit card as a condition of the probation. So basically saying if you've made this infraction where you've driven under the influence and gotten caught, something's happened. In these scenarios, this judge is saying you got to get this app and you need to use it. Isn't that an interesting thing when it comes into the legal field?
It is. Yeah. And they specified both Uber and Lyft.
Something like it. So it's not just those two, but those are, like we were touching on earlier, those are the two people talk about. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hadn't like you've probably been able to tell. I haven't really had a chance to dig too deeply into the article itself, but it's interesting to see that there's legislation being written around kind of making sure that people make smart decisions when they're drunk. So, like, if you were intoxicated and driving and didn't have the Uber or Lyft app downloaded, you might have a more extreme sentence like you could have used this as an alternative. Why didn't you use this? Stuff like that. But I'm curious because there's a small population of people who still don't have smartphones and may not have, maybe even as a stretch, may not even have credit cards.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious to see how the law would be interpreted on those people if this passes. But it's definitely interesting to see that they're becoming more progressive in their lawmaking and making sure that people are more accountable on ride-sharing apps when they're drunk.
So I'm just kind of wondering, what his, obviously you're providing an alternative, but like how's this going to make people do that differently? You think like they probably already know about this, right?
Yeah, but it's already there. It's already set up. You got in trouble once and it's already there for you. It's like, hey, idiot, we're giving you a chance here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's pretty much the only take I have on it. I don't know if there's any other angle to it. But,
why couldn't you pass a law that says you have to use public transit?
Well, that's another
2 a.m. A lot of places don't have public transit that late.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Train station's close.
Problem with our national infrastructure. So how can they legally push on the corporations? Push in the private sector, I guess.
This is one of those things also where you have people coming up with different solutions to stop drunk driving, and you have all these different things. Like some cars have built-in technologies to kind of detect drunk driving, and some police forces. There's been rumors of the as they mentioned in the article, like the lasers that police are developing to detect drunk driving patterns in cars. And I think this is one of those things. Like, it's not going to stop all cases of drunk driving, but it's one more way to keep people honest. Like, it'll keep having this public will keep the honest people honest. People are still going to drunk drive, but that's my take on this.
I mean, if you want to stop drunk driving, you mandate that every single person or every company that develops cars has that little thing that won't let the car start if you can't pass a breathalyzer. I mean, that's the way to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, we can't trust people to not do it. The way to stop it is to force it to be stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously the alternatives of cabs, Lyfts, and Ubers will help people still want to go out and have a good time, even though they can't start the car at the end of the day.
Right.
It's crazy to me. I mean, I'm going to go off on a mini tangent here. We don't have to stay on it because I know we're pressed for time, but it's crazy to me, the bravado when someone is intoxicated and wants to drive. You see so many accounts of people telling their friend, dude, it's not a good idea. Don't think you should do it. Don't you think you should go home? Now, granted, with more options available, I feel like it's probably happening less. I don't know. I don't have the statistics in front of me.
It hasn't.
But people will, like, I've had friends fight me. Like, nah, dude, I'm fine. I'm getting in my car. I'm fine. I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
But if that same friend came up to me with like a head contusion, dizzy and bleeding from the head, just as unaware of what's going on around them as if they were intoxicated, they're not going, dude, give me my keys. I'm going to go drive myself to the hospital. They're like, yo, can you give me a ride? I can't see straight. I don't know what I'm doing. But because of the way that alcohol works, I guess it's just the chemicals affecting you versus just, hey, this hurts a lot. Can you please help me?
Right. Liquid courage versus head trauma.
It's crazy. But like, literally the two things, getting a concussion and being drunk, could give you the exact same results. And one, you're like, someone help me. Another one is like, get away from me. I can do this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of, and no, that's fine. It's something that you're, like I said, it goes off of the thing where you're not going to stop them, or if you are, it's going to take more than just like a law that says like, oh, you have to download this app before you get in that car, drunk person, you have to do this, or else we're going to slap you with a DUI or something like that, because people break laws all the time. So, and this is going to be about as effective as one of those lasers to detect drunk drivers and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're already drunk driving. So what's the laser doing to prevent it?
Some of them are Uber drivers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Makes it worse.
So that kind of imposes this weird double negative and double standard where you have the Uber driver who's actually the drunk person. But
that's what I was going to touch on with what Thompson was saying about public transit too. I was going to say, imagine if the Uber and Lyft drivers got merged with public transit in some way. Where you don't have to rely on a bus or a train or a taxi. But no, that'll never happen, or else the businesses will fail.
Yes. And a lot of them are government businesses too, so they would want to make sure that they're still getting their tax money from them.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah. But we were talking in the last episode about how they were backpedaling out of their vote on net neutrality, Netflix. And just to further the argument of what we were talking about, Netflix, according to this Engadget article, has surpassed cable television for American subscribers. And it's definitely interesting to see that cable is dying a very slow and agonizing death. And the advent of the cable streaming service and streaming over the internet, and you have all these companies like AT&T with their DirecTV service, Comcast with their X1 plan, all these other companies moving to some kind of online streaming service, and Netflix is managing to pass all of them. So Netflix is going to start actually having some real weight behind its decisions.
Yep.
And it's kind of to take this maybe in just to spin this into a direction. It's something that Netflix should be aware of when they come out with a defeatist attitude. It's something that they should be like, they're passing American cable providers in terms of subscriptions in the US. It's huge. That probably hasn't happened since before cable when they passed radio. So it's just something that they need to be aware of when they release defeatist public statements about net neutrality and things like that, when they're the ones who are now currently the top dog in the game.
I wonder how those are related.
Right. Connect the dots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, it's just, they're outranking traditional cable TV subscribers.
Right.
When you take into like satellite viewers, like you're talking about the X1, on the web platform or smart devices, if you add those up, they're not on top. But compared to your set-top boxes on your TV, they're
That's what I was. Yeah, I was when I brought them up, I was mentioning more just the competition that was coming up in response to Netflix.
Right.
So that kind of puts a buffer on cable as it is, because you still have the regular channels, and then on top of that you have those in-red services. But
sure.
To go back on something that Ryan, you were talking about in the last episode, but you were thinking this just screams backdoor deals and such stuff like that. Last time I checked, and I'd have to find a related article on this to quote, but Netflix has a deal with Comcast to be one of their primary providers. So, or to be a provider of data and to have favoritism in their streams, which is anti-net neutrality.
Yeah.
And I wonder if those two things are related, like you said, kind of like the ESPN deal where they're getting all this money from an ISP, so why would they try to compete with an ISP?
Right.
When it's shooting that deal in the foot. So,
I mean, if they look to be the leader of all streaming content, ultimately, I see the major ISPs, they have basically become their giant utility centers at this point. They don't need to offer cable anymore. They don't even need it because they already control the lines. They're basically they have say in what goes through the lines now. I mean, and that is our free exchange of information these days. The internet's an essential like electricity and water. So,
right. And you could argue that just even owning a service like DirecTV is anti-net neutrality in itself, because not only do you provide the lines, but you also provide a service that goes through your own lines.
Right.
And who knows what you're doing with that in the background, whether you're actually favoring it or not.
What data they're collecting.
Yeah. So it's something that I'm curious to see how it'll progress in the future.
And I think Netflix is going to keep growing even more, man. I mean, you've seen, like I said, Twitter had the rights to stream 10 NFL games for 2 years, which was shocking to me. And then Amazon got it for this upcoming season, but only for one season. I mean, Netflix could they're the giant right now. They could turn around and be like, hey, here's a bunch of money. Every NFL game can be found on our service for the next 5 years. Except for the Sunday night game, the Monday night game, whatever deal they have to make. Like,
if they had live streaming like that, that's like it would flip the world upside down.
Amazon does it right. Well, Twitter did it last year. Amazon does it right now for all the Thursday night games. They were streaming those live.
Yeah.
So
go
ahead.
I was saying, to quote you in the first half, Netflix in itself is almost like synonymous with things like Kleenex and Uber and Netflix and chill. It's like you
How
said.
many times I say that last week?
Exactly. Like it's something that it's a meme and it's a service.
Yeah.
Like they're ubiquitous amongst people as just being the service.
Yeah.
If you say in general to somebody, hey, I'm watching Netflix, they know what you do, or they know what you're doing. If I say to somebody, hey, oh yeah, I saw this on Amazon. Oh, would you buy the DVD? No, I've streamed it. They have their own video service. Oh, really? I mean, obviously there's plenty of people who know that they have their own streaming service, but like I was speaking to my dad and that we had that exact conversation. I was like, yeah, I saw this awesome show on Amazon. He was like, oh, I have Prime if you want to order it. I was like, nah, dude, I watched it already. It's over.
Same thing. I was, you scroll through your Facebook feed, you look at what people are talking about. I saw something, I forget who said it the other day, but it's like, oh yeah, 2 years into my Amazon Prime subscription, I just realized now that I have the Amazon Video.
Yeah, and it's so easily recognizable. Like I was I was looking into, on a semi-unrelated note, I was looking into using the GeForce Now service on the NVIDIA Shield just to field test it with like the free month trial. And when someone was asking me what that was, I referred to them, oh, it's the Netflix of game streaming. Like that, like just saying that alone, you guys probably now have a better understanding of what it was before the beginning of the conversation.
I had no idea what it was until you said that just now.
Yeah, it's like not all of the games. It's a small subset, and you can stream them for free. So it is what it is. Or not for free, but for a monthly service like Netflix. But that being said, they're huge. That's like all I can really say now. They're so big, and they go to Sundance with Hulu and they buy up all the good shows that come out. So you're seeing all these amazing like hits coming out to Netflix and Hulu and these cable services or these streaming services, and the cable industry is getting nothing from it. So they're absolutely massive now.
Yep.
Compared to where they were 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So aside from that, we just had a couple of fun extra topics we could bring up.
A couple fun things, yeah.
A couple fun ones. I know you were pretty excited. You thought it was pretty hilarious with the Microsoft's AI was the first one to get a perfect Mrs. Pac-Man score. Did you want to lead that one off?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, there's a deep learning team that Microsoft acquired in January called Maluba. And they created an AI system, and it got the maximum possible points on Miss Pac-Man on the Atari 2600. And no human's done that before. So, yeah, good luck, human race.
Check this out.
You've been had.
The perfect score is 999,900. And the closest on record a human has gotten without cheating is 266,300.
Oh, wow.
It's not even close. Yeah.
Not even remotely close. And it's been out forever.
Exactly. Oh my God, that's incredible.
That's ridiculous.
I didn't realize it was that big of a difference between.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. At that point, you just get bored.
It's less than a third. Yeah.
At that point, you need an AI to carry on because your hand's tired. You're like, you want to sleep. It's been several days. You're running out of food.
No, Microsoft can do it. There you go. Or Maluba.
On a similar note, Microsoft or Google has pivoted DeepMind from Go to StarCraft. They're actually teaching it to play StarCraft, which so you're gonna have these DeepMind and like AI systems going into like professional video game tournaments.
God, imagine if you go on Steam or whatever platform you use, go on Rocket League to play a game. There you go. You got some deep learning AI against you, and you just get shut out 99-0.
DeepMind has joined your session.
Yes, exactly.
But I'll have I'll have some dumb name like Zinger.
Oh, you wouldn't believe some of them I saw last night. I can't repeat them here, but
oh God.
No, I just mean the AI ones that they give you.
Oh yeah.
It's always like
Mountain
Buster.
Yeah, Buster.
What would be impressive to me is if they get DeepMind to do something such as beating like Pokemon Red or Yellow or something like that, like a game that's not very linear and very complex in the approach you'd have to take. Like,
yeah, it'd be interesting whether they did that from like a ground point or if they taught it things. You know, like if you know where certain people are and what to do, then like, or if it's like playing the game from scratch over and over and like keeping that accumulation of knowledge. If that's the way they take, that'd be fascinating to see.
Right.
But if they're like, if they teach them the missing no trick, then you know I'm not as interested.
Yeah. If they can get it to beat the Elite Four.
Or if they can just read the memory card in there and know how the game works, you know, I'm not interested in that.
Yeah, like did you guys watch Twitch Plays Pokemon? Like watching something like fumble around at the beginning, like learn the step. It was great.
It hurt. So it was awesome, but like I would have to watch for like a minute max at a time. Like it was it was painful to watch. They had to change the rules multiple times during the game because people couldn't agree. Like there were so many people in there who just went, I just want to screw with everyone else.
Right. It was hilarious to watch like the progression of how that worked though. And eventually like I guess it died off so they were able to eventually finish the game. But like watching them get through like Giovanni's like building in the Team Rocket part, like later in the game.
Oh, with the
It was hilarious.
escalators. Yeah.
Is the escalators and like the little pads you had to walk on to push you to different parts of the building, and you had to like navigate like the maze to get to Giovanni.
Early
That was
on,
a complete mess.
before they changed the rules to more of like a voting system, other than every single input counts automatically, they would do it would be like a 3-second or a 5-second, like we want to listen to every single input that gets put in, and whatever the majority is, that's what it would go with. They changed it to that. It was originally just any input that was put in worked. So they couldn't get past the fences, because you would get past it, then someone would go right and jump back over, and then you would go up and jump back over. So they had to change the rule because of the fences.
I think it took them 5 hours to get out of Pallet Town.
Yeah, it was outrageous.
That's like the TV show, man. I was laughing at that. There's something online. It was like, yeah, it took like 7 months for him to get to Viridian City.
It's a long walk, man. It's like Dragon Ball Z, where it takes like 40 episodes for him to finish a fight or something like that.
Plus, there's
my
like
God.
swarms of freaking metapods just using hard and wasting all your tackles. So
Yeah. Like, you're alone in the woods. Your Pokemon only has struggle left. You're almost out of potions. But what did you guys kind of going off of these games? Just to get your opinions on it. What did you guys think of E3? Are there any kind of games that you were excited about? Any kind of consoles? Even if you were largely disappointed with E3, what do you guys think?
I thought that Sony just stepped up to the plate again. I mean, like I was telling you guys before, I think that console gaming has large in part always been about the games first and the tech second. So I think the Xbox One was super impressive, but really all they showed off was Forza, which, I mean, hasn't changed that much because the game is so beautiful and amazing already.
So good.
So that was cool. But like Sony, I mean, they talked about the new Uncharted. They talked about the new Horizon Zero Dawn. They introduced Days Gone, which we were talking about. They pulled out Detroit Become
Detroit
Human,
Become Human. That was awesome.
That looks amazing. A Shadow of the Colossus PS4 remaster. Like, they went in on the exclusives. Destiny 2 was showcased. Spider-Man was showcased. God of War was showcased.
Yep.
Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was showcased. They focused on exactly what people wanted, which is, and they've done that so far in the life cycle of the PS4, which is exactly what 360 did and gave them the advantage over PS3. Is PS3 wanted to be an entertainment system, and Microsoft was like, people just want games. And then they were like, oh, people love the games that we have. Let's make an entertainment system. And Sony was like, let's just make games, guys. And the games are winning.
Yeah, I think, like you were saying, the only 3 exciting games or things that they announced was the Halo Wars expansion pack, Crackdown 3, and like you were saying,
Crackdown 3 does look awesome.
Yeah, it looks awesome, and they're not really they're not doing much. I think they put all their stocks in the new Xbox console and expected the hype from that to kind of carry them through E3, and on top of that, most of the titles also coming out for PC kind of supplemented the PC end of E3, which was pretty exciting too. But I thought that one of the exciting things, in my opinion, was how Nintendo handled it. They didn't really announce a whole lot off the bat. They announced a lot of stuff they were working on. And one of the things they confirmed was one of those full-length RPG-style Pokemon games that they're making for the Switch,
Which is awesome.
which will be kind of cool.
So stoked for that.
Hold on. Think about this too, though. You're talking about Xbox One. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds coming to Xbox One. So that's something that's probably going to get some attention.
That's pretty cool.
Right? And you got Rocket League that's coming to the Switch. So
Right.
that's going to be huge. And what was the other?
Skyrim too.
Skyrim, exactly. That's the other one I was going to touch on.
Amiibo support.
So think about that. I mean,
Skyrim's coming to everything, though. It's coming to literally everything.
And Morrowind's coming
but
too.
that handheld portable device we were talking about earlier, now you can play Skyrim. on that.
You can ignore
I'm
your
gonna be-
dog at the dog park.
Yeah, exactly.
See, I can ignore the dog at home because I'll be too distracted playing Skyrim, the full game on PSVR.
In your bed.
Which they- So
there you
that
go.
is-
Okay.
that's
Doom
going to
and
be
Fallout got VR support.
Hey
too.
man, I'm not making an argument that the Switch surpasses PlayStation or Xbox, but
Neither am
Bethesda
I.
had a good showing, I think. I mean, obviously they said Skyrim is still popular. It's
Really?
everywhere. They said Morrowind's going to be on next gen now. They announced Doom, Fallout, both on VR. They talked about the 2 new Elder Scrolls, so Elder Scrolls Legends, Elder Scrolls Online,
Right.
Dishonored 2 expansion, Evil Within 2, which is the thing I'm most excited about, and Wolfenstein 2, which if you like first-person shooters but don't like to think, it's the perfect game.
Yeah.
It's super linear, it's super action-packed, get from point A to point B and murder everything in between.
That sounds like
That's
Gears of War.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's how
yeah,
Doom
basically.
took the approach too.
Yep.
The latest
Yeah.
Doom title. That game is just like a shameless, very violent, over the top shooter. So it's cool. E3, I thought it was exciting. There was parts of it that weren't really exciting. One of the big takeaways that I saw were Monster Hunter World that came out. That game looks absolutely incredible. I'm excited for that one. They announced a game that not many people really know too much about, but they announced the sequel to Nidhogg. Have you guys ever heard of that?
Vaguely.
Nidhogg is it's like a tug of war styled fencing game where you're 2 players that are like small, low res stick figures, and you're armed with like fencing swords, and you have to like kill your way to the other person's side and run through their final objective. And that is such a great game for like a late night 2-player kind of back and forth fight, and it's exciting. I definitely recommend it. I have it for PS4.
Yeah, I want to
so
try it.
if we want to do that for one of our Twitch game streams, we could totally have like a
I'd be
like
in
a
it.
tournament style Nidhogg round. That would be exciting. But overall, it looked really good. So
Nintendo also showed off more Breath of the Wild, which is incredible. Super Mario Odyssey, which the initial trailer that they showed made me almost lose my mind because it looked absolutely gorgeous. I didn't watch the one from E3 yet, but holy crap. And Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So I heard amazing things about the first one, but didn't have a Wii anymore when it came out. I didn't get it on 3DS because you had to have the new style 3DS, and I don't have that. And then I was going to get Xenoblade Chronicles X, and everybody was like, dude, it's not as good as it looks. It gets weird because I don't want to stop playing it, but I don't love it at all. And they talked about the mechs the whole time, but really it was like you had to play for 40 hours before you even touched a mech. So people were like, I don't know how to feel about this game at all. And then even after beating it, I was like, so what'd you say? They're like, I don't know. I don't know what to say. So people seem to love the first one. X seemed to be like they tried to do too much. And I'm hoping that 2, I didn't watch any of the videos yet. I'm hoping that 2 is a return to what they did in 1, because from all accounts and what I've heard, it's awesome game. So
right.
Understood.
Yeah. And with that being said, I think that's everything we have tonight for the episode. So with that, just to kind of remind our audience, they can find our podcast at industry40.podbean.com. That's our home hub where all the other episodes get populated from. That being said, you can also reach us on Google Play, iTunes. We're available on Pocket Casts for Android. You can download our RSS feed and inject that into any of your favorite podcatchers, or listen to us on straight from Facebook or Twitter as well. You can find us at Industry40 on Facebook, all spelled out, and Twitter the same. And with that being said, does anybody have anything else they would like to shamelessly plug? I know we usually do a plug at the end of the episodes, but I always like bringing it up to...
Just remember to rate and review. It's the most important thing when you leave comments.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you leave us comments, we'll read them on the air. Any 5-star comment gets read on the air. We'll give you some props. How about that?
Yeah.
But the more you guys rate on the actual on Podbean and on iTunes, that's how we get more recognition. That's how we have the ability in the future to throw little ads in here. How we get support. We've been putting some money into this podcast, and we love doing it for you guys. We love doing it for ourselves. It's a fun thing, but the way we keep, I mean, it sounds like I'm one of these professional guys already, but the way we keep it free is by you guys giving us the notoriety that we hope, or the ratings that we hope we are deserving of. So,
and that being said, also, we're not perfect people. So if we make a mistake during the show, or if we have something that you disagreed with, feel free to just reach out to us in any of our social medias and let us know, and we could even call it out on the show if we made a mistake, or even if you just have some interesting opinions or want your voice heard on the show, on your opinions on tech. So
any suggestions are definitely taken into account going forward. So we appreciate everyone's feedback and definitely appreciate your activity and participation. So
yeah,
I will throw a shameless plug in there for myself real quick. I have a different podcast. It's a wrestling podcast. So if you're a super nerd like myself, check out on Facebook.com. You can go search for On Air with Keenan and Kyle, talking all things wrestling with my man Kevin Keenan. He's a former WWE referee, so you can always do that. We're also on Twitter now at On Air Keenan Kyle, because I tried to get all of it in there and it's just too long. And you can also go to Podomatic.com and search the same, On Air with Keenan and Kyle.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
And, you're so welcome. And with that being said, you can find all of our beats on Jeff's SoundCloud. Jeff, do you want to plug your SoundCloud channel?
So I'll give you the URL for now. It's soundcloud.com/freh. That's FREH. Subject to change. Nice. Yeah. So not a ton up there yet. Still a lot of work in progress. But if you enjoy the beats in the show, let me know. I appreciate feedback on those as well. And I hope to have some new interesting beats coming your way in the near future.
All right. And I'll include your URL and Kyle's URLs in the show notes too. So if anybody wants to follow up on that on their end, they'll be able to just double check the show notes on Podbean. I almost said Podomatic. On Podbean.com.
My bad.
And you guys will be able to get to their shows through that methodology. But aside from that, I hope you guys have enjoyed this live experiment we're doing with Facebook Live. And I'm glad that we were able to finally get this done. So with that being said, that's episode 6. So see you guys in the next one.
I know I liked it.